Hello and welcome in. Today we're going to be doing an interview with the winner of the Emerging Advocate Award at the Big Red Advocacy Intercollegiate Network, or BRAIN. We're going to be speaking with Brian Sumereau, the captain of the Brownson Speech and Debate team at Seton Hall University and winner of the Emerging Advocate Award. My name is Ben Feldman, and I'm co-captain of the Cornell Speech team, which hosted the Big Red Advocacy Intercollegiate Network. Brian, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad. Brian, I want to ask you a few questions about some of your advocacy, about the speech that you gave at one of the many speeches you gave at the tournament we hosted. But first, I just like you to tell me about your experience in speech. So what first drew you to speech and what still draws you in now?
So my speech career started off a little bit different than a lot of people. I know many people who compete, especially in our district, have experience from high school, but I actually did just debate in high school. I did policy debate. So it was 2-on-2. Students were judging. It was very informal. We didn't go to nationals or anything like that. So to go from that to a program that has a lot more advocacy and a lot more broader reach, I think, something that has bigger scope and more impact, it was really, really cool. So when I came to Seton Hall and when I applied for the team, I said, wow, this is the things that I love from debate, but on a bigger scale, something that I can actually truly make a difference with, and something that, I can put my heart and soul into, put work into, be part of a team and be part of something bigger than myself. And that was something that I was looking to do in college. So I think I kind of took the best of both worlds and from the debate, and I had a little bit of theater experience too, and all of those things came together in this really amazing opportunity in forensics. So I'm really excited to be here. But yeah, so that's what drew me to begin with, was the chance to continue to compete and to be an advocate. And I'm still doing it because I've fallen in love with it. It's such a big part of my life now that I can't imagine where I'd be without it. So, thank you to the Cornell team for hosting such a great tournament, and to my team for keeping me on as long as they have. But yes, I'm still in love with it today because it's giving me everything that I want in a college experience, and being an advocate and being someone who can do something that actually makes a change. It's something that truly makes a difference for somebody. So it's a great opportunity. I'm just happy to be where I am.
Brian, that sounds like a lot of the experiences I've heard from other collegiate speakers. I myself did debate in high school, and I know a lot of your teammates also have some experience with debate in high school.
Yeah.
But that's really great that you're continuing on through this thread of advocacy and not just thinking narrowly about the experience of debate or speech, but
Right.
thinking broadly about what you can do.
I think that's what speech is all about, and that's what makes it great.
So on that note, I'd like to transition to ask you about the speech you gave at Cornell's Big Red Advocacy Intercollegiate Network. So you won the Emerging Advocate Award talking about this topic of queer on queer sexual harassment. So first, I'd just like to ask you about how you chose this topic, how you knew you were going to give this speech.
So the reason why I wanted to do a speech on this very niche and very specific topic was because I realized it's an area that is not often addressed. A lot of times when it comes to harassment of the queer community, it's from the straight counterparts. It's from the people who are harassing the minority in that regard. They don't tolerate them in the workplace. They feel like they can say things that they wouldn't be able to say to straight counterparts. But what we don't really analyze is within the queer community itself, there is still a level of toxicity there. There's still a level of ways that people can be exploited and people can trust others because it's viewed as a community, but a lot of times there's that toxic culture where you can be stabbed in the back if you make one wrong move or whatever. And there's a lot of delicacy when it comes to the idea of coming out and being queer and being in the closet, because you need to be delicate with that. Coming out is a huge deal for people. And if, for example, if you're working with an employer who happens to be queer as well, they could hold that over you. They could threaten to out you or threaten to harass you or whatever if they know your sexuality and you're not fully out yet. So there's a lot of moving parts with it, a lot of ways that the queer community can be exploited and very vulnerable as they're entering the workplace. So I thought this was a really narrow topic, but also one that applies to a lot of people, because when we talk about this harassment, it's always from the straight counterparts, and it's almost never from within the community itself. So this was such an untouched area that I said, I really want to take a deep dive into and want to see. And I mean, unfortunately, some of it did come from personal experience, which is not ideal, obviously. I had some experiences where there were employers who were not as kind and not as open and not as receiving. And I realized that although, I didn't experience anything super traumatic, it could have escalated much more quickly. Thankfully, the internship that I had where I had a little bit of struggle was a remote internship. So I wasn't in the presence of anyone who could have manipulated me or anything like that. So, but other people are not as lucky. Other people get put in a position, they feel like they can't quit, they feel like they're stuck. So many moving parts with that. So I want to just kind of be a voice for those individuals who are struggling, those who are experiencing a victimhood that they never imagined, something that is so out of their control and something that is so unexpected, where they are trusting and that trust comes back to bite them. And nobody wants to be in that position. So I think this speech in particular, I decided on it because I had a little bit of personal experience on like a very surface level. And I said, there's a lot more to this that we can dive into. There's a lot more that I can talk about and advocate for in a persuasive speech. So that was kind of how I got to where I am with the speech.
Hmm. Now, what's the reaction been like from your audience? Have there been people who reacted strongly one way or another? Have you gotten any significant reactions?
I think the most significant reaction was overwhelming support. I do have a personal narrative that I've put in the speech about my own experience. And it's definitely tough because, you get up there, you're open and vulnerable in front of an audience of people saying, listen, I was on the surface where I could have been victimized very easily. I was in a position where I was exploited and I was misled and I put my trust in somebody and then that trust was not reciprocated. So to stand up on a platform and be open about that and to tell my story and my experience and to bring light to the experience of so many other people who share a story with myself, I'm just so happy that the district and the community of speech has been so overwhelmingly supportive. The reaction has always been, wow, this is such an incredible speech that touches so many people and you are so brave to have done this. And I really, really appreciate that. It is so supportive because there are areas, it is competitive forensics, right? There are, it's a little bit cutthroat, you're trying to take down the competitors against you, but overwhelming support, I think, has been the unifying theme amongst people. And, regardless of where the speech places, I think people understand that this is not just a speech. This is real life. This is something that is happening and has happened to people for years, for decades. So I think bringing light to that and showing the gaping holes in our system that allow this to happen is so important. And I think this kind of supersedes the competitive nature of speech. It's not so much about doing well in rounds, getting those ones. It's about really doing something bigger than yourself and trying to spread awareness and be that advocate and be that voice for people who may not be able to speak up for themselves.
Hmm. Yeah, really powerful. And I'd like to ask you a little bit more about your role as captain of the
Sure.
Brownson speech and debate team at Seton Hall, specifically on that thread, because I hear you saying how you, in a sense, went out on a limb and shared your personal experience, and you had a lot of support that came in from your audiences. So I'm curious about what you think of as your role as captain, what you try to instill in the members of your team, and if you're willing to share, what's it like to try to tell others on your team to do something similar, go out on a limb sometimes, and have them expect or hope that they will be supported in the same way.
Mm. No, absolutely. I think one of the things that we really tell people coming onto the team, people that join, people that are recruited, is that we are a competitive team, but it's not about the competition. We compete because that's the nature of how this community works. But the competition is really secondary to the messages that we are trying to spread. And we want everybody to be comfortable, obviously. But I think people start to realize that the more intimate the messages are, the more personal, the more uh, ways that you can impact people, the more likely you're going to end up doing well anyway. So I think when you really dig deep and you start to uncover those parts of yourself and those parts of any community that you identify with that may be struggling, that may need some help, that may need some resources or financial support, and you tap into those and you say, these are things that we should go out of our way to support, that makes all the difference. And I think people see that. It's more genuine. The ones that there are speeches, especially when you're first starting out, where you're like, well, this is an issue and we need to solve this. But beyond that, the issues that are more intimate and more personal and impact more lives are the ones that are going to do well anyway. So the competition comes secondary, but as captain, I try to instill these values of being an advocate first and trying to really spread messages that are worth spreading, because there, anybody can communicate, anybody can talk about whatever they want, anybody can post something online, but I think constructing a speech that is so researched and so nuanced and so thorough, you need a good cause to support. And I think as people see that and start to understand that role that they have as competitors, as a captain, I try to bring that out of them, and I try to say, okay, well, how can we bring this to the bigger picture? What can we do to really make a difference? We need more than a QR code. We need more than a petition to sign. Can we get legislation passed? Can we like implement a new system? Can we start a government program? Can we do all these things? So I think thinking big and thinking long term helps make the speeches more impactful, more thorough, more just more competitive too. And that's the great part about it, is that there is a correlation between the bigger the cause, the bigger the reward. So it's nice that we can find these causes that we can truly make an impact with, and at the same time do well in competition. But as captain, I think it's that role that I play of instilling this advocacy in my teammates is so important. You have to make sure that they understand that they have a platform. They are uninterrupted for at least 10 minutes around. So use that to your advantage. Be that advocate. Be someone that can spread a message that people want to listen to and people can take action for. So I think, yeah, as captain, those are the roles that I try to instill in my teammates and try to get them on board with this crazy dreams that we have of changing the world one speech at a time.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm hearing you say about advocacy is kind of a constant thread in what you're telling me. And I know you had said that switching from high school debate to college speech continues along that trend of advocacy. So I'd like to ask you for a moment about your thoughts on advocacy itself. As the winner of the Emerging Advocate Award, what do you think of as advocacy? What is it mostly about? If I were a new member to your team and I wanted to be an advocate, then what do you think speech has to offer? And why do you think speech is a good platform or a good avenue for advocacy? And I know that's a lot of
Absolutely.
questions,
No,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I think the great thing about speech is that we are there to listen and we are there to absorb the messages that others have to send. Obviously, we cannot be in everybody's shoes at once. We don't know what everybody's going through. We don't know what everybody's struggling with. We may be blind based on our circumstances or based on our surroundings to issues of various groups of people, various organizations, various communities, so on and so forth. So I think with forensics, with speech, giving us the chance to hear the messages of others and then spread our own messages ourselves is unlike anything else you're going to find anywhere. Because how often do you get the chance to speak for 10 minutes without being interrupted by a friend, a coworker, a parent, whatever, an employee, a supervisor, a boss? You have the floor and you got to use it. So I think being an advocate especially means that you are taking advantage of this opportunity to spread your messages and to make a difference. And I think even beyond that too, it's taking the next step. I know last year, with the pandemic and everything just beginning, we didn't get to go to the national tournament. So instead what we did was we did a week of action where we said, okay, here are the solutions and the petitions and the things that we have as action items within our speeches, how we can truly make a difference, what we can do. Donate to this organization, meditate on this prose or this monologue, whatever, right? Depending on what the messages we were trying to send were. And we said, listen, if we can't spread the messages to other people at a national tournament to do that, we're going to start with ourselves and we're going to work from there. So we dedicated a whole week of doing those actions and we spread the word to as many people as possible about doing those same actions, saying, hey, donate to this organization, sign this petition, help call your representative to pass this legislation, all these different things that we've been advocating for the entire year. And instead of bringing it to a national scale through forensics, we found other ways to do that. And I think going above and beyond, trying to find as many ways as possible to be an advocate and to get your message out there and to encourage others to join you is so important. So I think advocacy, if I could boil it down to a few things, it's taking advantage of the resources that you have and being as creative and as thorough and as persistent as possible to get your message across and get everybody else on board, because it's a worthy cause. And no matter what you're advocating for, I think it's worthy that you are given time to speak, you are given the resources you need. And if you're not given them, you fight for them in any way that you can to make sure that no stone is left unturned and that you are getting your message out there to as many people as possible.
I think that's a really creative and amazing approach to advocacy and thinking about organizing all of your solutions in a week of advocacy like that. I think
Mhm.
that's a great solution. Have you thought about extending that beyond the pandemic? Is that the kind of tradition that you could see starting in not just Seton Hall, but across the collegiate speech circuit?
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea to bring it even further than just our team. I think for this year, it was very last minute. We were like, well, Nationals was 2 weeks away. So we kind of got to get this together and try to figure out how we can do the pieces that we've been working on all year justice. And so we thought that was the best way to do it for this year. But yeah, going forward, this is not going away. This is not something that's a one-time tradition. This will turn into, our team will continue to do it, and we'll try to encourage other teams to do it as well. Because I mean, you go into a round and people leave the handouts and they leave the QR codes and they have the flyers and the links and whatever the case may be. But it's following through with that. It's clicking the link, it's reading the document, it's doing your research, it's understanding, it's donating, it's calling. Taking the actual action is what needs to be done. So we call it the week of action because we were going to do those actions. We're going to sit down and do them because we run out of time otherwise. We don't have the resources. We don't have the we don't want to. We just we get too lazy, whatever the case may be. So I think dedicating that week of action, saying we're going to sit down, we're going to do everything, really helped us fulfill it and achieve what we were trying to do with those speeches year round. So I think as the week of action becomes a bigger tradition and becomes something that we could get the whole district involved with, I think that's just something that is really special and something that we can actually truly use forensics as a vehicle to get these messages across, get the help and the support to those who truly need it.
Mhm. And it's interesting to think about being a person, a change maker in speech, because it's in a sense never been easier to just scan your phone over a QR code as
Mhm.
opposed to the days before QR codes and even the internet, where it was, go to the library probably
Yeah,
or call your senator.
exactly.
But in a sense, it's so much easier now, and yet you do see those QR codes left on the desks.
Mhm.
So it's such an important matter, even within the speech community, for people who do care about advocacy to care about everyone else's causes and thinking about how you can actually make those changes happen.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's the important thing too, is forensics is just as much about listening as it is about speaking.
Mm,
So as you are in a persuasion round, take those handouts, listen to the speech, get engrossed in the message that that person worked so hard to tell you, because it means just as much to them as your cause means to you. So it's that support, it's that family connection that you have with the other people in the district, and the way that you can bring the message further and bring it beyond, because we come from everywhere, right? Our district is just our little seven shaped area on the coast of the East Coast. But we go to the national tournaments and people come to colleges from other states, and we can get those messages far and wide. And that's really important too, to give the same credit and the same attention and the same love to those other speeches that other competitors have worked just as hard on. And I think forensics is just the right environment to do that, because it's just as much about listening as it is about speaking and about advocating for yourself.
mm. So, Brian, before we conclude, I want to ask you about what's going to happen beyond collegiate forensics. So, I want to know what you hope to do as an advocate in the world beyond college speech, and what your hopes are, and how you think speech affects that.
So, I mean, I'll start small scale. I think, like, as I'm looking for jobs now, this is the first thing that comes to mind. I think, I'm pursuing degrees in finance and IT. So, in that world, it's definitely not as easy to be an advocate, because you're just crunching numbers, you're using data, you're so on and so forth. But I think when you are trained in advocacy, as we have been through forensics and through speech and through persuasive speaking specifically, I think you develop this tendency to stick with your cause, your beliefs and your values and what you may have and what you may present. So I think as I'm going into my career with an IT and a finance degree, as I'm a financial analyst or whatever the case may be, and I look at the numbers and I say, okay, what is the story that these numbers are telling me? And how do I convey that story to others to get them on board with why we need to make a change? Even if that change is just, well, this brand campaign is not working, we need to change it. So like, if it's something as small as that, I think that's still making a change and being advocates, saying the numbers don't lie. This is the story the numbers are telling us. Let's make a change. Let's implement that change. Let's see it through. So I think that small scale, how speech has helped me transition into that. But I think bigger scale too, there's so many opportunities, especially with social media and with just more of the digital connected nature that we have. And we're so lucky and so fortunate to have such connections to other individuals and to just be with each other, right? We have the video conferencing, we have the apps and the social media. So I think beyond the speech round and beyond this one speech that I'm giving and the few others that I've given with other persuasive topics, it's important just to stand up for what you believe in, and posting on social media and telling your friends about it and spreading the word is easier than ever. So I think the fact that I can do that and the fact that I can utilize the resources that I'm given to help spread the message as wide and as far as possible is an obligation. It's something that now that I've been trained in it, I don't know who I'd be without it. And I think as more and more causes and more things that I care about start to come up and start to cross my desk, I have to pick those up and say, well, what can we do with these? How can we make a change? What can we make a difference for? Who can we make a difference for? So I think all that plays into it. I think it's just really important that advocacy is a lifelong skill. It's something that you can use no matter what you are. If you want to win an argument at home, or if you want to, make a change and see a new future better than the one that our parents gave us, I think that's important, that advocacy is instilled in everything that you do. I mean, you talk about the Aristotelian appeals of logos, pathos, ethos, whatever, right? You're trained in a way that you can persuade other people to see from your perspective and to join you in a cause and in a movement. And it's so important to have those skills and to be able to get others to join, because that's leadership. That's something that you're going to need no matter where you end up in your career, in your life, in this world. So I'm just so grateful for this opportunity, for Forensics for Speech, for the Emerging Advocate Award, that I can be an advocate and that I can continue to pursue advocacy, not just as a career, but as a lifestyle, because I think advocacy truly is a way that one lives their life. And I hope to do that as I continue on my career in speech and beyond.
Well, Brian, thanks so much for sitting down for this interview with me. I really appreciate it. And congratulations again on the Emerging Advocate Award. I know it's going to go to good use as you continue your trend of advocacy in the collegiate speech world and beyond. So thank you for your time. And again, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate being here. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate everything that Cornell does for spreading these messages and for truly promoting advocacy to the highest level. So I really appreciate everything. Thank you again.